What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Cosmic Culture, the channel where we talk all things major movie and television news, theories, breakdowns, and much more. I'm your host, Chris, and last night we had the finale for Ms. Marvel, which many of us are holding our breaths because episodes 4 and 5 were a little bit disappointing. There wasn't a lot of story being pushed. In fact, quite the opposite. The story they gave us in the first 3 episodes, which I really liked, were kind of dismantled. There wasn't any villain, there was no story left, and I think overall people were a little worried about how the series would end. Well, after episode 6 came out, we were given a good closure to the origin story of a new hero who I think a lot of people are going to be able to get behind. Iman, who plays Kamala Harris, is absolutely wonderful for the role, and I think a lot of people will get behind her. Even if the Ms. Marvel series writing wasn't the strongest, the character and the introduction of her character was very strong. With that being said, although the story kind of petered out and the ending was, I would say, almost anticlimactic, there were a few major points and transitions for the entirety of the MCU that happened in last night's finale. In fact, 3 specifically that I want to talk about: Mutants, Young Avengers, and Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, all making quick appearances in last night's finale. So let's talk about it. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our other major movie and television news updates happening daily here on the channel. You can also check me out on my other socials: Instagram at Chris M. Rosser and Twitter at TheCultureChris. Links to both of these are in the description down below. So yes, finale, Ms. Marvel's over, a few things that need to be discussed. Let's talk about those big transition points. Number 1, Young Avengers. There's a point when the DODC, who are kind of the main antagonists of this finale, they're chasing Kamran and Ms. Marvel around, trying to capture them, and we can kind of see a divide in the DODC. Some people want to chase the kids and run into the school, and some people don't. Ultimately, they end up chasing the kids, getting all this bad press, all this bad publicity. But there is a point where one of the agents say, this is a big mess, and this is why kids shouldn't get powers. This is a reference very clearly to the Young Avengers, who I think Ms. Marvel, maybe Kamran, Kate Bishop, and a few others who we've been talking about either made entrances into the MCU or will make entrances into the MCU, will come together to form this group, the Young Avengers. This is a very popular comic book group with a bunch of younger kids kind of coming together to create Avengers. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's very well titled as Young Avengers, but that's something that I think for sure is on the horizon, and quite frankly, we might be even closer to getting a Young Avengers film than we are to getting an Avengers film. SDCC is right around the corner, and D23 isn't too far either, and Kevin Feige has opened up and mentioned that we should start to expect to see, big connections and reveals, and we can understand where Marvel is headed with the almost seemingly lackadaisical and unconnected story that we've gotten so far in Phase 4. With that promise, this was the last project we will be seeing before San Diego Comic-Con's Hall H, where Marvel is well known for revealing a lot of their big and upcoming projects. So having touched on Young Avengers, or young people getting superpowers, definitely could be a segue into an announcement we should be maybe expecting later on this month. On that note as well, at the very end, we see Bruno's talking to Kamala, and he says to her, I was wrong about your signature, about where your powers come from. And there's this big, huge build up to what he's about to say, and everybody thinks, oh, he's about to say that there's something about you that's inhuman, and he completely pulled a 180 on us and said, you have a mutation. Now, this is also important. They used the word very specifically here. They didn't just willy-nilly pick some type of synonym, some type of word that also means strange body DNA. They chose mutation very specifically. Now, many of you believe that they played some X-Men theme music over this. I am inclined to agree with you. It definitely has that kind of remnants, even though it was altered and it was changed. It definitely had those vibes and that feeling. He said mutation, they're playing this music. And Kevin Feige himself, in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con, president of Marvel Studios, shortly after the merger between Fox, with all of the X-Men characters, the Fantastic Four, was talking about mutants. And he said for him, mutants and X-Men is an interchangeable word. They're the same thing. So X-Men is a group of mutants, but mutants, it's the same. So using the word mutation here for President Kevin Feige is a big deal. It's not just a random word that kind of means, hey, you have an enhanced DNA set. They use the word mutation, they played this theme music, so it's very possible that Inhumans might kind of fall into the mutant subset in the MCU, at least in Earth 616, since we know during Multiverse of Madness, when we were introduced to Black Bolt, they referred to him as the Inhuman King and Keeper of the Terrigen Mist. They also talked about the Fantastic Four, the First Avenger, all of that good stuff, and Professor X, actually, who is one of the most famous X-Men, was never referred to as leader of the X-Men or of the mutants. So it is interesting that they do mention Inhumans in that universe, but it also seems like maybe we will not be getting Inhumans in the MCU, or at the very least, they don't have a name. Perhaps Bruno is just saying you have a mutation and we are definitely overlooking this word, and Marvel knew we were going to do that, so they're just trying to get us excited. I know a lot of people really like Inhumans and their stories, but mutants is definitely a more popular subgroup of Marvel characters. I mean, the X-Men are legendary, their comic book runs were very successful, their shows and movies and animated series, the entire Fox X-Men universe, although at times kind of hard to follow and cringy, was definitely also very successful. So getting mutants into the MCU is certainly a priority, I think, for Marvel Studios, for the president, for the cast, and everybody involved. And I think here we did get a big hint of what that might look like. Now, the real question is, what was it that caused Kamala's DNA to mutate? Was it the snap? Was it something else? The Bengal definitely had some type of activation of that, which is where she comes off more as an Inhuman from the comics than an actual mutant. But that's all stuff we're going to have to wait to get a real explanation for. The really exciting part is it's here, it's on the horizon, it was explained, it's being introduced word by word, show by show, project by project. And again, just like with the Young Avengers, they chose to talk about this in the very last project, the very last episode of the very last project we will be seeing before San Diego Comic-Con. So maybe that coincidence will let us get some type of news, some type of update. San Diego Comic-Con, Kevin Feige might get up there and be like, all right guys, the mutants are coming, here's the deal. And I hope that that's the case, because it is a coincidence that the last seconds of project before SDCC talks about mutations. And with that being said, we need to talk about that post-credit scene, which, if you watched it, Ms. Marvel was interchanged with Captain Marvel. Brie Larson showed up, she made a very short appearance, which I think many of us believed was the case, and then the sequence Ms. Marvel will appear again in The Marvels, which we all knew, but it was really nice to see Brie Larson show up in this Disney Plus project. It's something we need to see a little bit more with these Disney Plus projects, is a bigger connection to bigger plot points for the main MCU timeline. So it was nice to see that, even if it was only for a few moments. Now, her seemingly getting switched over with the Bengal is rather telling as well. There were a lot of talk about these Bengals being the Negabands. We heard that there were 2 of them, and clearly Captain Marvel has access or has seen or was interacting with the other one, and that's probably what caused them to switch places. The big question, and the reason why Ms. Marvel is probably in a little bit of trouble, is we don't know what Captain Marvel was doing, where she was, and who she might have been fighting. And if Ms. Marvel was brought to where Brie Larson's Captain Marvel was, she could be in a little bit of trouble right now, and Captain Marvel's going to need to go find her and help her. And she might have a few questions for Ms. Marvel as well, like, who are you, what are you doing with that super powerful bangle, and what's going on right now. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with that as well. A lot of really cool connections, nods, kind of references, potential setups and foreshadowing for the future of the MCU. San Diego Comic-Con just around the corner, where we might be getting some answers a lot sooner than we think, which is a really fun and unique moment, because all of the times we have to wait for the new projects, for the Marvels to come out, all of that. But now we have San Diego Comic-Con, some announcements, maybe some connections, maybe some reveals about the mutants, Young Avengers, or the future of Ms. Marvel as well. Thank you guys so much for watching at the very end of the video. If you found it helpful, useful, or entertaining, consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell. And I'll catch all of you guys in the next one right here on Cosmic Culture.